The Nintendo Switch 2 is rapidly approaching, releasing in just under a month now. While that is very exciting, it has got me thinking about one pretty important thing. I hate this console. Okay, obviously I'm just kidding, but the original Switch is far from a perfect system, and I'm super happy it's finally getting a good upgrade. I mean, we did get the OLED, but like, who cares? With that being said though, there's a lot of elements from the original Switch that are carrying over to the Switch 2. We don't know everything, of course, but we have been getting a decent amount of footage as of late. So today, to fill out another week before this thing finally launches, I want to go over some of my nitpicks for the original Nintendo Switch. Now no, this won't include things relating to specific games. I have nitpick episodes on many of the major Switch releases that I care about, so if you want to see some of the stuff on specific games, go check those out. Like those other episodes, these won't just be my nitpicks. The second half of this video will all be nitpicks taken from the insane people on the community tab. We're gonna have a lot of comments to make fun of today. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. First things first, I want to start with the controllers. Now no, I'm not going to mention Joy-Con drift because that would be the boring thing to do. Wait, I just did. Well, luckily I've got a bit more to say about the controllers than just that. I guess we can go ahead and kick it off with the Joy-Con here. Honestly, while I have heard a lot of people complain about the size, I've never really had much of a problem with them. That is, except for when you use the Joy-Con on its side. The SR and SL buttons are atrociously small and feel terrible to press down. Anytime I'm forced to play a game like this, I get incredibly annoyed and my fingers quickly start to cramp. Games that require a single Joy-Con are worse than serial killers, I'm not kidding. One of the first things they revealed about the Switch 2 though was that the SR and SL buttons are getting a significant upgrade on the console. That's of course because the Joy-Cons themselves are a bit bigger too. It looks so much more comfortable now, so I can at least mark this as one of the nitpicks as being resolved with the next console. Luckily though, most of my Switch playtime has not been with the Joy-Con, rather I mostly use the Pro Controller. For the most part, I think this is my favorite controller I have ever used. It just feels really great in the hands and the size of everything is pretty much perfect. Button layout is also fantastic, and I'll never understand why people prefer the GameCube. That's why I'm super happy that the Switch 2 Pro Controller essentially appears to be the exact same except with an audio jack and grip buttons. Oh, and the Discord button, I guess. Although gotta be honest, Switch 2 nitpick here, I don't love the gray colored top compared to the all black of the Switch 1. I know they had to make it look different, but it just doesn't mesh as well in my opinion. But this video is supposed to be about the original Switch, and I do have a couple complaints about the original Pro Controller. For one, I have never loved how the D-pad felt on this thing. If you had ever played Tetris 99 while using this controller, you would know how easy it is to press a direction that you didn't want to by accident. You would try moving a piece to the side and then... So I just hope they fix the D-pad on the Switch 2 version to be more precise, since there's really no way for me to tell without trying it myself. The other major Pro Controller criticism that unfortunately has not been fixed on the Switch 2 is the lack of notches. As many of you may know, I play a lot of Smash Ultimate. Notches on the sticks are great at preventing misinputs and getting more accurate angles. This is like my one major problem with the controller, and it was something I was pretty sad to see not changed on the new Pro Controller. But whatever, at least I still have an excuse whenever I lose a game. There's a misinput! Alright, but that's enough about the controllers. What do I have to say about the console itself? Well, I of course have to start with the one everyone always cries about, the lack of themes. Many other consoles have plenty of themes that allow the user to customize their home screen. Ever since launch, the Nintendo Switch menu has only had two options, basic white and basic black. I think every single month since 2017, I have heard at least someone bring up how the Nintendo Switch desperately needs themes. Now, to be honest, I don't really care that much. I would probably end up sticking with basic white, but I could definitely understand why some people are upset about that. It is kind of mean of Nintendo to have a theme section on the menu and not add anything there ever. Far from the only time. I think Nintendo should absolutely add these, even if I doubt that I would use them myself. Unless there's a FNAF one, then I'd have to. One thing I would actually care about though are console-wide achievements. I love trying to 100% games or complete challenges, and that's why it always makes me sad that Nintendo won't ever include achievements for their consoles. Certain games on Switch have a sort of achievement system like Mario Odyssey, but I think a system that works across games for the whole console would be a lot more fun. Maybe even having a way to display what achievements you got in a game to your friends list would be really cool. So far, it doesn't seem like the Switch 2 has this, sadly. They could always add it or be keeping it hidden, but I'm honestly not holding my breath for it. While we're on the topic of some of the biggest complaints for the Switch, the eShop. Yeah, pretty much everything about the eShop kinda sucks. There have been plenty of videos that are just about the eShop out there, so I can't cover everything here, but I'll quickly run through some of the highlights. The most apparent thing is just the lack of music. The eShop, especially on the Wii, used to be known for its absolute banger of a song. So much so that this theme has become one of the most iconic pieces of gaming music, period. But then you open the Switch eShop and... yeah, it just feels so empty and doesn't really make it exciting to look around and shop. Now you could say this also applies to the main menu on the Switch since that's also silent, but honestly I don't have an issue there. It's just the eShop that feels empty while exploring around. You know what the eShop is not empty of though? Terrible games. Yeah, for whatever reason, it seems like Nintendo just doesn't quality check these games like they should. This has led to a lot of games that are just full of AI art and likely aren't even real games at all. It's impossible to avoid these as there's no real sorting done on behalf of Nintendo. On top of that, there's a ton of not safe for work games plastered all over the eShop too. too. All of this stuff probably isn't the best thing to show a young kid just trying to buy the Ninjara Mii costume for Smash Ultimate. Okay, never mind, they deserve to be scammed. So for the Switch 2, I really hope Nintendo takes more care with the quality control for what games are allowed on the eShop. I also hope they do a better job sorting the eShop so people can more easily find games they actually care about. And of course, a new song would be great too. Alright, now with a ton of the big ones out of the way, let's rapid fire through a few minor nitpicks before my final big one. First off, the fact that you can only connect 8 controllers to the Switch is really annoying. Now you may be asking, why would you ever need more than that? Well, in games like Smash that support 8 players, it can sometimes be annoying to connect everyone as Joy-Cons count as 2 controllers rather than 1, even if they're paired together. That could lead to scenarios where you have enough controllers for everyone, but to get the full experience, you'd have to force someone to play on the side of the Joy-Con regardless. It would be nice if Joy-Con, when paired together, just counted as 1 controller. The kickstand on the original Switch is the most flimsy thing I have ever used in my entire life, and I'm surprised I've never broken it since launch. I'm very happy Switch 2 is getting a bigger stand because this thing has always felt like it was one bad movement away from snapping. Another thing the Switch 2 luckily corrected is the fact that the charger port was on the bottom of the Switch. I get that they did that to make it work with the dock, but it made the Switch impossible to charge while it was on the stand. Luckily, the Switch 2 has charger ports on the top and bottom, which is going to work so much better. And for the last rapid fire nitpick here, I'm still annoyed that some games don't work with the video capture feature. This is mostly a problem with Smash Ultimate for me, but other games don't allow video capture as well. I get that it's to help the game run smoothly, but I hope the Switch 2 is able to figure out how to make that feature a bit more universal. But my final nitpick comes down to one of my favorite features from the 3DS. Whenever I was bored, I loved opening up and looking at the activity log. This would give you a ton of stats based on your playtime on the console. Yeah, okay, I'm a nerd, I know. The Switch does track playtime, but it's significantly less specific than the activity log. On Switch, you can only see a rough approximation of your playtime in any given game. The 3DS activity log not only gives you the exact time played down to the minute, but also the number of times you played, your average playtime, when you first played the game, and when you last played the game. It would even automatically give a crown to these stats based on if it's the third, second, or first highest across the console. There's also an option to track how many steps you took, but I'll be honest, I never walk anywhere, so that was pointless. So anyway, my point is, I think the Switch version of this is so much more bare bones, and I really hope Switch 2 gets something a bit more in-depth like this. And also another minor annoyance, I hate how you aren't allowed to see your playtime for a game until after 10 days. Before then, it'll just say, first played blank days ago, and it annoys me every time. I know that's the most nothing burger of a complaint ever, but that's exactly the point of nitpicks. So honestly, this would probably be the thing I'd be happiest to see resolved on the Switch 2 from this video. But now it's time to move on to what you weirdos said in the community tab. Now this got a lot of comments, but most of them boiled down to, so really we don't have a ton of stuff that I haven't already covered, but there were a few interesting ones. Starting off, we got a few relating to the Miis. Jacko8822 says, the fact that the advanced Mii customization from Miitopia seems to be trapped there. I'm sort of mixed on this one being a problem. Yes, the Miitopia Mii Maker is by far the best we've ever seen, and the Miis that people make on there are really incredible. But at the same time, I do understand some games not being compatible with it. I'm sure it's easier to universally implement the current Mii Maker across every game on the console with Miis, so I'm not going to get too upset here. That being said, I really do hope this feature is in Tomodachi Life living the dream. Sinodi says, I wish the Miis weren't buried in the settings and had a software already on the Switch or one of the icons at the bottom like the eShop, pictures, news, etc. This one I'm definitely going to agree with. It feels so weird how buried the Miis are in the Switch interface, despite a lot of the games still using them. I don't think it would be a good idea to have a whole game added to the home screen, but a little button at the bottom of the menu seems more than reasonable. Yeah, there are quite a few buttons down there now, but I think there's room for one more. Speaking of the icons at the bottom of the Switch menu, TJ Deech says, oh, and that Nintendo Switch Online logo being a different style than the other logos always makes me so mad. I'm crashing out right now. Okay, I'll be honest, I just wanted to scream. I need to feel something. I will say though, I definitely understand this complaint. Like, there was no reason for this button to be full red while the others just have a colored icon for what their app is about. I guess maybe it's so Nintendo can catch your attention easier since NSO obviously makes them money, but if it looks ugly, then I think it would be best to change it. On the topic of Switch Online though, TuneInVelt600 says, the fact that a current gen console still doesn't have a good friend system, friend codes, and that they are just now adding voice chat behind a paywall. Okay, normally I don't include 2-in-1s, especially since one of them is about the Switch 2, but whatever, I wanted to talk about this anyway, you can't stop me. Wait, no, stop, I'm sorry, I don't want to go back to gym. First off, I've never really had a huge problem with friend codes. I could definitely understand why that would annoy some, but it's not really that hard to type in a friend code. Plus, I'd rather not be spammed with friend requests because people could just look up my username or something. I leaked my friend code one single time and the consequences were already dire enough. So yeah, I'm fine with friend code sticking around, and as for voice chat, I honestly don't care about that feature at all. It's literally just worse Discord, so I'm just gonna continue to use Discord. It was never a huge inconvenience to me that the original Switch had no voice chat. And as for the complaint about having to pay for for it. Literally, why would you need it if you don't have online? Speaking of transitions, Mishkas has a pretty long one here where they say, aside from the lack of themes, which is just a cosmetic detail that doesn't really affect anything, it'd have to be the performance across the board. It felt so defeating year after year, seeing game after game come out, and like clockwork, the reviews would roll out, and there'd be a section about the frame rate dropping, or the load times compared to the other consoles. I understand that it's a handheld system that also connects to a TV, not a beefy 9th generation console with the specs of a gaming PC, but man, I just want to play a Pokemon game that doesn't feel like it's 10 to 15 years behind the rest of the industry. This is a complaint I definitely understand, and luckily that seems to be addressed on the Switch too, with it being far more powerful. Now, I usually play Nintendo games, which I think are optimized pretty well, but even then, games like Tears of the Kingdom definitely had frame drops every now and then. Not so bad that it wasn't playable, but enough where it was noticeable. I've also just avoided pretty much any multi-platform game on Switch out of fear that my Switch would not run it well. Not that I play many, but I'm sure if I downloaded Garten of Banban Switch Edition, it'd explode. As a side note for Pokemon though, I feel like a lot of the problems for that franchise are developer specific. Tears of the Kingdom does have frame drops, yes, but it doesn't seem like it's nearly as much as Pokemon, and Tears of the Kingdom seems like a much more complicated game. Though I haven't played a Pokemon game in years, I just like to watch the horrors from afar. So hopefully the Pokemon devs can fix that up, because I do want to play Legends ZA when that comes out. Catout says, I hate that the cartridges taste so bitter. You eat cartridges for the taste. I eat them for the love of the game. We are not the same. Art the Galewind says, how did we go a full generation without Netflix when the Wii, Wii U, and 3DS had them? Genuinely is kind of insane. This is a complaint I saw a surprising amount of the community post, along with the lack of a web browser. I didn't realize how many people use their game consoles for stuff like that, but I guess I did watch a lot of YouTube on my PlayStation 3 when I was younger, so I can't be too surprised. If the Switch has YouTube, then I see no reason it can't include Netflix either. I mean, what if I really wanted to watch Breaking Bad on the go? What's a phone? I'm sure some part of this comes down to Netflix being stingy, but they really have no reason to not be on Switch with how successful the console is. Wouldn't surprise me if we get to see it again someday. Supringle says, my nitpick is that screenshots were not used that well. You couldn't use them for backgrounds on the home screen and were overall pointless for the Nintendo Switch. Honestly, I don't have any problems with how screenshots were implemented. I think they work perfectly well, and it was fun to take pictures in games, especially the ones like Odyssey that had a dedicated snapshot mode. The only reason I included this comment is because I think it'd be very funny to imagine screenshot-based themes. Beautiful. Male MCD2 says, we can't have both the Switch's screen and the TV screen at the same time like with the Wii U, and I remember being really bothered with this when I got the Switch. I understand this complaint because there were quite a few games that took good advantage of the dual screen. Mario Maker 1 and Wind Waker HD are some examples that immediately come to mind, but the Wii U was full of great dual screen games. But with that being said, I obviously understand why this was cut. Being portable is a much more valuable property than what the Wii U had. However, I do think it would be cool if this could be re-implemented. Maybe with some accessory for the Switch 2, you'd be able to use the game share feature to broadcast games up to the TV while still playing in handheld mode. I think this would be a great feature, and I would love it as it could allow for DS games to come onto Switch Online. They could still do it without this feature, but I think always having the TV and touchscreen available like the Wii U would be the best case scenario. But for our final nitpick of the day, Piggy M. Wiggy says, my biggest nitpick with the Switch is that Batman doesn't have a Switch PFP. How dare Nintendo forget this gaming legend once again. We will have our revenge. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you hate the select buttons on the Switch Joy-Con and hate me for not mentioning it? Let me know in the comments. Sorry if this and the next couple videos are a bit shorter than normal. I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for the absolute onslaught of videos I plan to make once Mario Kart World finally drops. I have a ton of rankings already planned for that, so I hope you all look forward to that when the Switch 2 launches. But before I go, I've got to thank my members being Nathaniel B, Seth Sunsun Villano, Luma, Blessed Tiger, Maidzio2, Yanni the Duck, Wyatt Derpy, Trader Mo, Mevins 2001, Nuclear, Kid Trunks 15, Caddy Shrew, Miss Jade Lot, Enchanted Skull, SMA, B Major 2003, Arson the Raboot, Sir Musty, Belandor, Puggles Are Fun, Diluted Colors, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Hansel Clone, Thicky Reiki, Ungido TM, CW McCain, Tibby, JubeTube, Tesseract, Mr. McMahon 5702, Hippopotamus, Jameson Pageson, Wilbert, Golden Sand Slash 15, Z Frost, Stuffy Ant, Justex, Concadat to Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.